Donald Jeffries. Donald Jeffries. Author of Hidden History and Survival of the Richest. Host of The Donald Jeffries Show. Billy Ray Valentine. Billy Ray Valentine. Host of the Infinite Fringe podcast. Researcher, truth seeker from the Bronx, New York. Tony Arterburn. Tony Arterburn. Radio host, combat veteran, precious metals analyst, and alt historian. Together, they take on the headlines of the week, decode the disinformation, and plow through the mainstream propaganda. Unauthorized, unscripted, and unintimidated. This is America Unplugged.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Hope everybody is doing well. It's America Unplugged, the War on Reality Report. My name is Billy Ray Valentine, and I'm joined by the usual suspects, the wisest of all the wolves, Mr. Tony Arterburn. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Billy. How was your Thanksgiving?
It's fantastic. I had a hell of a time.
Lots of turkey?
I didn't have any turkey. I had an entire tray of lasagna that my mother-in-law made, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. I didn't know if they removed meat from their diet up there yet. That's mandatory after the election. Maybe
it's already. I'm getting used to insects, because that's supposed to be the wave of the future.
Right.
So that's I'm trying
easy bugs, my friend.
And I'm trying to get ahead of the curve here. It's we gotta think ahead, look forward, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I was like, you know what? No turkey this year. Give me some insects. I don't know which type I ate, but it's supposed to have a lot of protein. So fantastic. Don Jeffries, the legendary. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be here with you guys on Saturdays. Ashley in the chat says you're basically Garfield. He eats lasagna. He also hates Mondays. So that's I never heard of that, but maybe it's a new tradition. I know. I like turkey. Give me turkey or give me death, as someone once said.
I think Ashley is 100% right. How you doing, Ash? What's going on? I love lasagna, and if I were a cat, I would try to be Garfield. That's my spirit cat. I want to be him of all cats. Anyway. Lots of things going on this week. Silver is hitting all-time highs. We're going to have Tony talk about that in just a little bit and what that actually means for us as a nation, as a people, and what we're going through. Don wrote an article about jobs in the United States. We're going to kick off with that, actually. We're going to talk about that in a little bit and see what the prospects of human employment is moving forward. We really got to talk about it in those terms. And it's exploded onto the mainstream now. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Hopefully we'll come around to Pete Hegseth blowing up people and blaming other people for it. We'll talk a little bit about that. And Donald Trump really hates Somalia. Right? So we can. I don't know if we can make an argument as to whether or not he's not racist anymore. People would say, well, he's not racist. You're just taking him out of context. At this point, it's like either he's racist or he's going senile. One of the two you pick. It's either way. Don Jeffries, tell us about your article, sir. What is going on?
We can find it on Substack, Donald Jeffries at Substack.com. It was inspired, I hear from a lot of people, my readership, which is growing on Substack, tends to come from the working class, older people that are, I don't think I have wealthy readers, at least they don't tell me if they do, but so they're truly marginalized people they're struggling, underemployed or unemployed, and some of them homeless. But just knowing people in my life too, it just I get so tired of this mantra, and I criticize the left all the time because they have so much crap. They're woke. They say diversity is our strength, and the deluded right says no one wants to work, or I can't hire anybody. Those are their mantras, and it just isn't true. Nothing changed when back in 2021, this enterprising guy in Florida made a big deal. He got a little bit of play in the media, but everybody's kind of shrugged their shoulders. Where he applied for 60 entry-level jobs. This is entry level. Anybody can do it, right? You don't need qualification or experience or anything like that, right? He got 2 interviews out of 60 entry-level jobs. At the time, that got a little press, and I said, and I hear from that kind of stuff from people all the time. They'll have a job ad or they'll lie about how much it pays. Because again, the right has a lot of the left has its own lingo, but the right has a lot of lingo too. Learn to code, and I worked in IT and learn. Well, it doesn't matter if you code now because and Donald Trump just reiterated last week where he told Laura Ingraham, no, Americans have no talent. They don't have talent. We need more foreign visa. The same program he had pledged to get rid of, he now wants more of them. So they've taken over IT. So learn to code. No, maybe if you're in India, but not if you're in America. Learn to code doesn't work. Learn a trade. Again, if you go and try contacting, a plumbing company, electrician, whatever, and things that used to pay really well, especially electricians when they had viable unions. And again, you'll find it's really hard to get a job as a trainee, and they want to pay you very little while you're a trainee. They'll tell you what you make if you get in there, and then you might not cut the mustard and they'll cut you or whatever. So it's not as easy as it used to be. Back in the day, you had much more upward mobility when I was first starting. You did have these things where an older worker would take a younger worker under his wing. Because most jobs you can learn on the job. You just learn through training. It's not rocket science, but they're trying to treat everything like rocket science now. And they want, as I talk about that whole thing, you have to have experience. Most server jobs in restaurants now want experience, really, to be a server. So if you have to have experience for that, what don't you need? And that guy that, it was one interview the guy had in Florida. The one interview he got, this is 2021, was for a construction company making $8.45 an hour. And this is construction work. Now, this is the economy we have. And so those people that argue against my Huey Long talk and, the disparity of wealth, explain that. I have a great quote from Eugene Debs, a socialist, in there. I'd be called a socialist, I guess. But, he's great. He said, I'm basically arguing against a system that allows one person to accumulate millions and millions of dollars for really doing nothing much at all, while millions of people work every day of their lives and barely scrape by. And he wrote, that's 100 years, more than 100 years ago, he said that. And it's the same thing today. You got all these people, and you got the Ben Shapiro types that, that come forward and say, no one should ever retire, and making fun of something like that. He says, if you have a second job, it's a you problem. What? So they had something like Candace Owens, who I like more and more. She played a clip of this black guy just raging out on him, seeing the clip and saying, shut the F up. And he just kept saying, you're sitting there and there's such a disparity between, and I pointed out, and Billy Ray can relate to this, Odell Beckham Jr., who was very briefly a name in football. I think he's wildly overrated. He's basically, for one catch, he had one really good season. But he's not a name anymore at all. He can't even make a team now. He came out, virtue signaling that he made $100 million. And he basically, I guess he's lost it all. But and he got all these idiots in the media saying, well, 100 million doesn't go as far as it used to. Well, I took in this article, I looked up the average, according to AI, and the average income is like $53,000, like that. They claim it. That's what AI tells me for an American worker. So I did a little math. If you made $53,000 a year, how long do you think it would take you to accumulate $100 million? 1,887 years, almost a millennium, almost 2 millenniums. So again, that's what you keep in perspective, the numbers we're talking about here. And we have to listen to some idiot who, if he didn't have the talent to play football, what would he be doing? I mean, come on, he'd be doing menial labor. And he made $100 million and is complaining about losing it somehow. And what is it? How is that a slap in the face to all these workers out there who have to get up every day and deal with a crappy boss? And, no raise, no benefits, foreign competition now everywhere. So, and I know this article is not getting the reads and likes that the others do because no one wants to hear it. No one's interested in it. And it turns off all my conservative readers. They have no interest. Okay, you sound like a communist again. But that's where my heart is, and that with Huey Long. And it's just, I'm glad that I don't have to try to get a job out there because I know it's impossible, even if I was much younger. And it's very, very, and it's shameful I heard from one woman and read about her. I mean, her husband has all these incredible qualifications and skills and stuff. He had, and he's older, of course. He had to take a job in a donut shop. And that's the reality. You see these people, you see these old people, and you think, well, they must be losers. No, I mean, a lot of them were brilliant, had great resumes. They got laid off, outsourcing or something. So now they're working at McDonald's or places like that. It's shameful. No one talks about it. So it's, I don't know. Read it, and hopefully some people can relate to it. But I know I hear so many stories that just from people. I assume they're telling me the truth, but it's just shameful. And the left doesn't talk about it anymore. When's the last time you heard anybody, Bernie Sanders, any of them, to talk about workers' rights or workers aren't being paid enough? I mean, Sanders nibbles around the edges of it, but he doesn't say it the way he should. And that's the gist that all our economic problems revolve around the fact that the vast majority of workers, probably 80%, are not being paid enough to meet the cost of living. And that's why you have 70-some% of the people living paycheck to paycheck. Oh, and by the way, the other mantra is that start a business, become an entrepreneur. Again, Grok told me, AI told me that the average startup cost for a small business is $30,000 to $50,000. 70-some% of Americans don't have $1,000 in the bank. So you do the math. I said, well, maybe you can get 50 individuals from that 30% that do have $1,000 in the bank, and they can start a business, kind of going to cut into your profit margin. But this is where the advice from the right is ridiculous. So get ready for the UBI, because there's what's the alternative at that point? So I would hope, if you're young, I just hope that that they give you enough UBI. Enough fiat currency to be able to maybe live in an apartment or something, but it's just a shameful situation. But that's my wheelhouse issues. That's why I still continue to trot out Huey Long and even Eugene Debs on this stuff.
Yeah, no, Huey Long is the dude, and I remember when this whole conversation. I mean, it's gone around here in the alt media for some time, but now with the rise of Mamdani, everybody's like, oh no, socialism, we're gonna die. Yeah. We're going to be infected. Wear your mask, and I remember Huey Long and what he had to say back in the day, and it made a whole shitload of fucking sense, and as the 99%, we should be looking out for our best interest at this point. And it's like, no, we want to look out for them because they told us that that's the best system, the best way to go about it. And I'm not saying we go full on socialist here. I'm just saying there are common sense things that we can do as a people to benefit us. Now, that being said, you mentioned coding, Don, and you're absolutely right about the job situation here in America. It's tough. It's tough to find a job. It just is. I have family members that are trying to find a job right now, and it is not easy. Jobs do exist, but in what capacity? Whatever. But let's say learn coding. In a few years, what's that going to do for you? You just plug in the AI. We're not going to have to learn coding anymore. It's not going to be a thing. So not only are we having issues right now with the way things stand, but once AI goes into a full gear, which it's 100% going down that road right now. But once it gets there, we're going to have all sorts of problems, all sorts of issues as far as employment goes. And I will tell you this before I throw it to Tone. Bernie Sanders has come out. I'm going to play this on my if I go live tomorrow night. Maybe if I'll dig it up here and try to play it. He's come out and warned against AI, talking about what AI is going to do for the workforce. This was a couple of days ago. He's done it before, but just recently he did it again. He's like, this is a real big problem. He even went as far as to say we can create an AI that's going to take over humanity. He's going alt media Terminator scenario right now is what he's putting out there. I think he's right. And when you hear about workers' rights, you do hear about it, Don. There is a thing here, but especially here in the alt media and in conservative circles, they're like, no, we don't want handouts. No, we don't want handouts, is what they say. It's like, it's so ridiculous. It's such a, I can't come to terms with that mindset. But Mamdani won an election based on the affordability issue, which Trump says is a hoax now. of the affordability Democrat hoax. He said.
He's a hoax.
Listen, at this point, it's not Trump believing any of this stuff, in my opinion. It's Trump has lost, is slowly, even, it's not even slowly. He's continuing to lose his mind more and more and more, and he's just saying whatever the fuck is going on, in my opinion. But no, there is a problem. And part of that problem is the mindset that a lot of Americans have been trained to believe when it comes to alternative economic systems, because they're evil is the words that are used, for opportunities for the working class, and that's what the majority of us are. So this is why I have a hard time coming to terms with some of this stuff. There's that. But then there's the AI situation, and there's no avoiding that. I think Don is absolutely right. Tony has talked about it in the past. We've talked about it several times here. UBI is coming. It is, I don't know if it's the only solution, but it's the solution they're going to go with. And I am afraid, and maybe my fears are unfounded, possible, but I am afraid of what that is going to do for the freedoms, whatever freedoms we still have, when we become fully dependent on the government. When we become fully dependent on a stipend for us to be able to live the minimum. They don't even want us to have air conditioning. Okay.
No.
I think it was Obama that said that. Right?
Obama told the Africans. I briefly mentioned, Wheezy, obviously our friend Wheezy. I don't know if he's in the chat. When I was on the Union of the Unwanted the last time and he was on there, I was shocked to learn that he's works on a trash truck. And he was and I said, this guy's brilliant, and there's so much to offer. I worked with so many people like that when I was a blue collar worker. There's so much wisdom. It's a different kind of wisdom, but that you don't get anywhere. And that's one of the great things about the internet is that somebody like Wheezy has to, I mean, maybe he enjoys doing that. I don't know. But I mean, I think maybe he would want something.
He has to earn a living, Don. There's nothing wrong with being a trash man.
Exactly. But no, there's nothing wrong with it. But the fact that if someone has to do that, and I think is he in New York? Because in New York, no. I know they make pretty okay. Well, because some places they make pretty good money because of good unions, but still, he has so much to offer. And how many people in the alt media, certainly in conventional media, nobody working a blue collar job. When I was pulling 1,000-pound linen carts around when I was a young guy, nobody would have had me on to analyze anything. Although I could do a better job of it than this guy from an Ivy League university, but they don't want people. They don't want working class people. So that's one good. It's kind of the internet, at least at the beginning, was egalitarian. It gives everybody a chance. That's why it's, before, something like this podcast or, with just a blog. Now you have Substack, but just the fact people could write their thoughts on a blog. Okay. Julia says Wheezy's in Sarasota. Okay. We'll hope they have a good union there too. But I just was shocked. And he's certainly not, demeaning at all, because the guy does a great job of analyzing, but who knows? There are probably lots of guys out there. There were when I was working a blue collar job.
No, I think he does all right, Don. I think he makes good money. I know he's a really hard worker. He
if they have a union like they do in New York, he would make good money. But I mean, but we need more people with a public voice that are working, that do physical labor, because you have people like Ben Shapiro and people like that have never worked in their lives. You can tell those guys. Tucker Carlson, who I like in many ways, even though he's never done any work in his life, I think, if you've done physical work, maybe you have an appreciation for the people that do it, and maybe you'll treat them better and want them to be paid adequately, I think.
I'm throwing it to Tony right now. Wheezy's a hell of a broadcaster, and he's a great dude. He disagrees with me on just about everything. I will say that he said that proof does not matter. We don't need proof. So let's keep that in mind. And I love Wheezy. All right. But he literally told me on his show that proof doesn't matter. We shouldn't be looking for proof. So that's something we need to take into account when talking about the brilliance of people. Anyway, Tony Arterburn, what's up, buddy?
Just listening to Don and you go back and forth, and it reminded me of that Twilight Zone episode. Obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth. Obsolete. You know, they were talking about
right.
the American worker. And Don's right about the tone deaf part of the modern conservative so-called right is ridiculous when it comes to jobs. I mean, that's why they lost the future. It's a big blind spot to them. They're captured by these think tank weirdos, and you know, it's a mental dead end not to care about people and their wage. And history teaches that. I mean, if you go back throughout history, there's always this cyclical pattern of wealth concentration and redistribution. It's precipitated by revolution. That's the way it always happens throughout human history. And the more concentration you get, the worse the revolution is, the worse the upheaval. So you have to have the reason that this country did so well for so long is because we had a stable middle class and there was upward mobility. And that's why, you know, the political tensions, albeit there's, you know, periods like the Civil War and so on and so forth, there's those interruptions, but mostly it worked. And you go back to a couple of things happened in the 20th century to destroy the ability for you to make more, have upward mobility, and get into the middle class. And that one of the first part of that is free trade. You know, we started doing these free trade agreements in the mid 20th century, post World War II, so we could open up our markets to Japan that we dropped 2 atomic weapons on, and Germany and Europe that was in ashes. And so we opened up our markets, and for a while, you know, it seemed to work because prices they fell, but also wages fell. And that's not that big of a deal, really, if you don't have inflation. But when we went off the gold standard, the real key to why all of this becoming a consumer economy instead of a production economy like we have, I mean, if you look at the industrial base that has been gutted over the past 50 years and accelerated towards the beginning of this century, you look at what we call it the Rust Belt. It's rusty for a reason. So all those jobs, those living wage jobs disappeared. And you combine the fact that the dollar, we're talking about silver, the dollar's lost 88% of its purchasing power against silver in the last 12 months. It's lost almost 60% of its purchasing power against gold in the last 12 months. And that's indicative of where we are with the money printing, the massive runaway debt, the corruption, all of that stems from having fake money. So you have these two things that really signal the end of prosperity for the American worker, and that's free trade and inflation. And the only way to really get back to anything would be, Trump's floated this idea, which would be a miracle if it happened. And obviously I would applaud it if it happened. But if they did away with the income tax, I mean, which is only for the rich, the super wealthy love this thing. And that's why it perpetuates, all of the people that say that the wealthy are in charge of the country. I said, yes, they are. And they said, well, we got to tax them more. And that's why our tax code's there. I'm like, they built that for you, so you could not compete with them. You understand, like, this is a war on your mind and understanding how economics works. So the lower strata always thinks that's a good idea, and then the upper, super elite, they always think that's a good idea too. We're all stuck here in the middle, and UBI will be the only way. I mean, even Bloomberg came out in the 2020 election when he ran in the primary and said, we got to do something about, we got to bring in UBI, or they're going to bring in the guillotines for us financial people. And because, again, there's this mass of folks that have been left behind, and they're going to get even left behind further with you talk about putting gasoline on that fire. Right. That's AI. So all of the low skilled jobs and all that stuff that are disappearing from AI, and then the fact that the living wage jobs and other things have disappeared, or we outsource or insource like Disney did. I mean, Don knows this story. It was about 5-6 years ago. Disney started having their workers here train the Indian workers that were going to replace them so they could save on that. And that's the HB1 visas.
You remember, Tony, they had a movie based on that back in the 80s. What was that? Where it was already starting then, where they had I think George Wendt from Cheers was in it, and maybe Michael Keaton, where
where they make cars. It was up in
yeah, and and they trained the foreigners that came in to replace them or
Yes.
whatever. And so that
Yes.
was going on 40 years ago. And what happened? Again, both sides and that's why, again, one of the big parts of the appeal of Trump was that he was the first one to talk about that. He was the first one to talk about the horrible trade deals and what a disaster NAFTA was and everything. So, yeah, we got sucked into it, but Trump had some really good rhetoric when he first started running.
What was that, Don? You broke up a little bit there, buddy.
Oh no, I said Trump had some really good rhetoric when he first started running, and that was something again that we'd seen. But look at that movie, the frustration was already there on the part of American workers. And of course, that was when you still had some factories. That factory
Right.
doesn't exist anymore. That's why the tariffs. I agree with Tony. I think tariffs are a good idea. We need them, but the problem is Trump is doing it ass backwards. You need to bring the industry back. We still have no industry, so there is no domestic competition. You're putting tariffs on foreign products so that your industry can compete better, but we don't have an industry.
Well, here's how you know that they don't care. Okay, here's how you know this is all a game and running out the clock, and there's golden parachutes are going to be deployed. If you really wanted to turn on the economic engine of this country, you would do away with the income tax. You would make it safe for outside investment to come and build things. You'd take, say, Detroit or Michigan itself and say, this is a tax-free zone for the next 100 years. And people would come build things and there would be stability. Markets don't like uncertainty. And this is absolute chaos right now. And I'm in the precious metals business, so I can tell you, like, these high prices and things, you think this is like great for me. I'm glad a lot of my people that have bought over the years are doing well with their holdings. That's a blessing. But no, this is an indicative of how bad the economy is doing. The dollar doesn't lose 50% of its purchasing power against gold in an economy that's healthy or where there's certainty. I talked about this on my show on Thursday. I mean, if you just look at the entire crypto market and everything, all this innovation, which should be the future, and people betting on that, and it's flat or down. Yeah. And that's your signal. The monetary metals where people go when there's FUD, there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, those continue to rise. But all the market's looking around and saying, I don't understand the tariff system, the sanctions. What are we doing in Venezuela? What the hell is going on? And there seems to be no rhyme or reason. And I think that's by design. Like, we can try to figure out the chaos, but I think the chaos is the plan.
The chaos is definitely the plan, man. And there is a lot of chaos going on. So, I mean, what we can take from this is that we all have to get ready, right? Like, I can't even begin to give financial advice. I have no idea. I have to figure out my own freaking finances. You know what I mean? But I know that at some point I'm trying to guide my kids in a world where I have no idea what's going to happen. Like I don't have any certainty of what the job market, how we're supposed to sustain ourselves moving forward. Like I just don't know. I don't think anyone really knows besides, unless you're inside the 1%. And that's a very small percentage inside the 1% that really would know or have the means to adjust to something like this. And I think a lot of us, the vast majority of us, are going to be put in a predicament where we won't have another alternative but to accept the money and then figure out what the hell's going on, and it's a really scary situation. So I think we have a very short window of time for potential independence, not even full independence, the potential of independence. We have a 5 years, maybe 6-7 years tops, to potentially be able to adjust to this system and have some semblance of freedom. And that's just a potential. And that's just my opinion. I'm some dude in my kitchen, but that's the way it looks to me. And it's scary. It really is. And this was going to happen no matter what. We've been talking about it for years. It's one of the only things that we are actually right to concentrate on and discuss as heavily as we have in the alternative media is what's coming via the AI, right? The surveillance state and the indentured servitude state which looks like we can't avoid at this point. Tony, final thoughts.
Well, I think the future will reset all of this. Again, that's why they call it a great reset. They're going to reset the financial structure, how we've always seen where wealth is concentrated. I think it'll move away into different areas in this country. Smaller towns, I think, this is just off the top of my head. I think there's more opportunity for these towns that people have moved away from to go to the bigger cities to find jobs. If those jobs aren't there, if you look at some of the, Gerald Salente's talked a lot about this, these commercial properties that used to be filled with offices and rents and all these things, they've been vacated, and not all of them, but a big chunk of them. So the commercial real estate market is in real trouble because of those jobs disappearing, or they've been moved to remote or anything like that. I think you look at the movie Ready Player One, and you find out all the money's in Ohio. Like, that's how they set the future. Like, it's just some random thing because of a leap in technology or the company that started that program. That could be where we see in the next 20 to 30 years is a lot of the financial centers like New York may not be the financial centers anymore. It may be more decompartmentalized and regional, and through places like in the Midwest or Texas. So I think there's going to be so many changes, but there also is a silver lining, not to have a pun on silver, but I think there's a silver lining to all of it for small business and entrepreneurs. And we talked about this off air a little bit about, service jobs and, the trades and other things. Yeah, they're not easy to get into as far as, and I think Don's absolutely right about that, about getting an apprenticeship. A lot of these companies are owned by larger companies. It's hard to talk to anybody anymore, but you could start your own if you can go through the trade schools, kind of start at the bottom. But I think a lot of the smaller towns, there's opportunities for that. And there's still opportunities to bring products to market and serve people and do other things in that space. But that is the creative destruction that's happened because of, I think it's the multiple factors, Billy. You've got, AI, you've got inflation, you got free trade deals and uncertainty. And that is not fertile ground for stable living wage jobs. That those times are slipping away.
I just think that, sorry, man, for some reason my voice is going. I just think that, with inflation and even free trade deals, there was or is a light at the end of the tunnel. Countries recuperate from that sort of stuff. We can make policy changes. With AI, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. There is just uncertainty. That's it. And there's replacement. You want to talk about the great replacement theory? This is the real great replacement. It's the AI. It's going to replace anyone and everyone, and it's not going to matter whether you're white, black, Asian, it's sexual orientation. No, you're just going to get replaced. So that's what scares me more than anything else. You're right about the inflation and about the economic standing of the United States and around the world. But I feel like even though times are hard, they can get better in that aspect. With the AI, I just don't know what's going to happen. Everybody's going to get replaced. How does that affect us? How do we move forward? Like maybe there is I doubt it, but maybe there is a plan where humans do something else and it's productive and it allows us independence. But I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that that's the way they're going with all of this. So it's scary. And this is one of the ones that the alt media can put check. We were right about this and we were ahead of the curve on it. So good for you. Yes, it's depressing, but it's the truth. Hey, Liz, how you doing? God bless you. I don't mean to depress you.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's about right. Yeah, it is depressing.
It is depressing, but the way I look at it is, and I've said this before, we have to work within the system to try to, make adjustments for ourselves and for our families and our friends and our people as a whole. So it's not that there isn't a light at the end of the tunnel. I just don't see it. It doesn't mean it's not there. So let's take that for a grain of salt. I mean, we're supposed to be here, right? We're here for a reason. this is probably the reason. It's not a mistake that we're here living together at this time. We have to go through this. And in our own way, we will impact, whether it be large or small, it doesn't matter. It's still an impact on the way this is going down and how it will evolve and unfold moving forward. So there is hope for everyone, I think, Liz. And it's always good to see you, Liz. How are you? How's everybody in the chat? What is going on? Good to see you guys, everybody on Don's channels, on Tony's channels, and on my channels. What's going on? Hope everybody's doing well. All right. So anything else you have to add on the silver thing, Tony?
Oh, the subject itself is probably a whole podcast. I talked about it on Thursday. I mean, do you have questions on that? Does the audience have questions on why, you want a quick synopsis of why we're seeing the prices?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in short, it's because at the beginning of the year, we had a black swan event, and that was the threat or the insinuation that there was going to be tariffs without clarification on all commodities, even precious metals. And a lot of the London and international vaults started clearing out their metals. A lot of contracts were called, and the paper market was completely disrupted into chaos because, as we've said for many, many years, us silver bugs or gold bugs, there's something wrong with this paper market investment ratio to physical. So silver was estimated that, for every 250 ounces of silver traded in paper, there was only 1 ounce that actually existed in the real world. And so I think a big chunk of that was disrupted. A lot of contracts were called, physical delivery was put into place. Then you have nation states like Russia put silver as a strategic reserve asset. China, look at the India is importing silver at record rates. They're up I think it's like 3 or 4 times what they imported the year before. Even the word rupee comes from the root word rupiah for silver in Hindi. So look, a lot of this is it's a perfect storm, if you will. It's not just one thing that's driving it. And then you have the uncertainty of the dollar itself and losing purchasing power against gold, and silver will follow gold. So, by the way, I still think we're in cheap territory for silver. The all-time high before this was $52 in 1980, adjusted for inflation. That's about $200 or so in purchasing power today if it were to catch its 1980 high. So in dollar terms, we're at just under $60 an ounce. And by the way, that jumped almost $10 an ounce from the Thanksgiving holiday. So a lot of this was happening while I was closed. And I was like, oh, thank God, because I can't handle these people who are selling silver, and the trading houses and everything's backed up. So it has been a wild ride, this rise of silver. And I don't know, I'm sure there'll always be pullback, but you have industrial demand. And then you look at physical shortages. 200 million ounces a year in deficit. So for everything that's mined, everything that's produced, and everything that's recycled, you still have 200 million plus ounces a year that you have to pull from the above ground supply. And mining is years behind. There's no miners because the price has been suppressed for so long. The mining of silver is way behind demand. So there's all those factors that come into play here, Billy. But at the end of the day, it's the economy, and I think the uncertainty and capital has to flow somewhere. And right now, physical, and again, that's away from the paper. The physical demand is at record highs, and I think you're going to continue to see that so long as this continues.
Man, all right, man. So hit up Tony. Not an infomercial, but he's been doing this for a long, long time.
But wait, there's more. I do like a ShamWow thing. I need to get that
going. Who out there remembers that? You get kudo points if you remember what ShamWow was. That was
dope. Within the next 5 minutes, we'll throw in
OxyClean.
A ginseng set.
That stuff works, bro. I don't know.
Nice.
I don't know what it was, but it absolutely worked, so there's that aspect of it. Okay. How much time do we have left? Let's see. We have
Jackson T. Barrett kindly reminded us that movie that we're talking about was Gung Ho. So thanks, Jackson.
Yes.
Jackson. How you doing?
Yes. Great movie.
I've never seen it. I don't.
That's where they imported the Japanese workers, Don.
Yeah, and notice how I noticed, like, I watch a lot of Turner Classic Movies. They definitely control that movie. Hasn't been seen, I don't know, anywhere in TV for a very long time. Look it up and see. Same thing with Capricorn One. I'm sure Billy Ray loves that one. With the
OJ, man.
they went. They did show it a couple years ago, but it was the first time in a very long time for obvious reasons. So.
I remember you introduced me to that, Don. I didn't know anything about it.
Oh, did I? Okay, well, I'm sure you liked it. Yeah. I was right there watching it in 1978. Believe me. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I was all over it.
On a lighter note, before we get into Donald Trump and Somalia, The Shining is going to be released in theaters again next week in IMAX. They made it specifically for IMAX. I'm going, of course, and I'm dragging my entire family along with me. They don't have a choice; they're coming because they must witness this movie because it's fantastic. And on IMAX, you can't go wrong. So here's something for Christmas for you guys to do. Go see The Shining on IMAX. It's gonna be dope. All right, Donald Trump and the Somalia. Good Lord. If we I don't know if we'll have time to talk about Hegseth, but I mean, this is a good icing on the cake for the fascism cake that these people are cooking up for us. My gosh. All right, I'm going to play this. I hope this is the footage that I am looking for. I know it's at least part of it, but he went on a rant like a tirade. It's incredible. There is this other woman that's running for office. Forget her name. I think she's Latino. She's from somewhere in Texas, I think. Yeah, she's from Texas. I forget her name, but she has been spewing some of the most hateful things I've ever heard in my life. And for her to be at a level that we all know about her is crazy to me, because I feel like that wouldn't be a thing years ago. But this is where we are. Let me know if you can hear it, and then we'll go from there.
No, I think that Waltz is a grossly incompetent man. There's something wrong with him. Okay, there's something wrong with him. And when you look at what he's done with Somalia, which is barely a country, they have no anything. They just run around killing each other. There's no structure. And when I see somebody like Ilhan Omar, who I don't know at all, but I always watch her for years. I've watched her complain about our Constitution, how she's being treated badly. Our Constitution, the United States of America, is a bad place. Hates everybody, hates Jewish people, hates everybody. And I think she's an incompetent person. She's a real terrible person. But when I watch what is happening in Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes, or however many lakes they have, they got a lot of lakes, but this beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off. And now I'm understanding, and you're going to look at, I hear they ripped off Somalians, ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country is no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries too. We don't want them the hell. We have to rebuild our country. Our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. They came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
That is our president of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. Very diplomatic, very statesman. You know, it's like, fuck. What are we watching here? I'm like, my God. Tony, what's up? What are you thinking, man?
It reminded me of that movie Lord of War when they're in they have the guys in Liberia and Monrovia are watching the O.J. Simpson coverage of the murder trial in the 90s, and the guy looks at the TV, says, and it's all this war zone happening around him outside, and he says, when I get to America, I will not live in Brentwood. And it's just the way that they saw it. And
right.
You know, this kind of rhetoric, how is this in any way productive? And for a minute, I thought he was talking about Gaza. So people running around killing each other. I thought he's talking about what the Israelis are doing. No, it's indicative of this. We cover this every week, and it seems to be, I think you're right, Bill. I think it's the rhetoric. I think it seems to be getting worse.
Yeah.
And I think the propaganda is so strong right now. I talked about that new PSYOP video, the recruitment video that the group for the psychological operations group out of Bragg put out. And you and I covered the original one that back in 2022,
right? About
all this, words are weapons. And I notice a lot of the propaganda floating around out there, it's almost like it's on cue, where you get a lot of anti-Muslim, like anti-Islamic sentiment floating out, like trying to get people pumped up against that, to like ignore the fact that, or ask, like, why are we in these wars? Why are we in the Middle East? Why are we in the Horn of Africa? Why are we doing this? And then what has our intervention caused around the world? I mean, we have playing both ends against the middle, where you have, look at what's happened in Minnesota. You just have this massive immigration. You have those Somalis, like he's talking about with Ian Omar. And at the same time, we have no incentives for anybody to integrate or become part of our system, and you keep them apart. I think this is the part of the insidious thing about all of that. You still have massive immigration without any incentives to assimilate. And by design, I think that puts us at odds with each other. And this just fuels the fire for more division. And so it's unfortunate. I mean, I was thinking, like, Don, can you imagine John F. Kennedy speaking like that? I mean, you look at the 1963 American University speech that Don always talks about, one of the best, probably the best presidential speech of all time. The reason he was murdered, I think, about, we all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future. We're all mortal. He's talking about his enemies. And we don't have that kind of high rhetoric or high ideals anymore. And I think it's indicative of how our culture is disintegrated and morphed into this ugly thing that it is. And happy countries don't elect Donald Trump. And I mourn the fact that, as Don has mentioned and we've mentioned many times, what he ran on is what we wanted. Like, I'm talking about, like, the first campaign, like America First. The establishment has trillions on the line. That they're making this into a globalist sanctuary instead of the republic that we were supposed to have inherited. And so all that stuff, the bringing the troops home, the trade deals that were bad, the tax system that's rigged, all that, the Federal Reserve, none of that's talked about now. It's just this grotesque kind of funhouse mirror version of whatever America First was. It's hard to even remember what I was thinking at that time. It's been so distorted.
Don, what's up?
Yeah, no, and somebody in the chat, I think my cousin Carson Jeffries, that's a nice things to say about me. He talks better about me than cousin Hakeem does over there in Congress. But at any rate, obviously there's something in all that idiocracy. I mean, you're talking about JFK speech or any president's speeches. You can get them collected in book form. I guess they still have that. They did for a long time. Just imagine Trump's speeches on paper. How did that speech look as you're reading it? I mean, it's ridiculous. And again, why I think he's an actor. I just don't know that. But he's not wrong in terms of, we don't need a lot of these people here because they're not skilled people. They're coming here desperately poor. But he's been bombing the hell out of Somalia. So I don't know. Are they migrants from our bombing? I don't even know if they're coming because of that. Because that seems to be what happens a lot of times. We go and intervene in countries for no reason. We create terrible situations, and then we bring the migrants in, and then we complain about them. So it's really stupid. And complaining about Ilhan Omar, she's really bad and all that stuff. I assume she came here legally. I don't know, but uh, Trump. First of all, explain why we're bombing somebody. Maybe he said they're just killing each other. Time. Well, we're probably killing them too, bombing them. Why are we bombing Somaliland? What did they do? But there's something right in there in that terms we don't need these people. But then in the next breath, I don't know when he made this speech, he tells Laura Ingraham, America doesn't, we don't have any talent. No, Americans aren't talent. We need people here. He keeps saying we need people here. So he's picking and choosing, I guess, what people he wants to have here. I would argue that, I'm one of these people that think that when my wife watches that show, America Has Talent, I say, America really doesn't have that much talent. You get upset about it, but I don't think we have less talent than anywhere else in the world. So I think we can do these things, but it's just unfortunate. And this is why he loses all credibility with the way he talks. And I can't believe, maybe it's the senility. I think it's the actor. If you look at speeches from Donald Trump 30, 35 years ago, he didn't, yes, the aging process is a part of that, but he didn't talk like that. He didn't talk in these, juvenile third grade level sentences, repeating things over and over again, struggling to find a new word, just repeating the same word over and over again. It's just what he did here. And it's shameful because it's just, again, you want to talk about the policy and how many of those Somalians came over during his first administration. I don't know how long have the Somalians been in Minnesota. First started hearing about them 4 or 5 years ago, probably. That Minnesota has why they're all going to Minnesota. I don't know. Maybe it was Tim Walz, as he said. But when did they start coming over? And as president of the United States, wouldn't he have been able to try to do something about it? But that's because his first term, he did nothing. He did nothing. He just talked. So I can't pay. It's a shame. It is entertaining on some level. And I would urge everybody to watch, what's the guy's name? Jason, the guy that does the Trump impersonations. He's great on YouTube. He just did a great one on, he visited, I think it was New York, and he was giving out presents to Santa Claus. And he had a black doll, and he kept saying, nobody wants the African American doll. Why don't you want the African? He's hilarious. And he goes up as your favorite president. Unbelievable. Look at that. And Jason Shook, I think his name is. I don't know. My son turned me on to him, but he's very entertaining. But that's all Trump is at this point, is a caricature. You can get entertainment out of it when a guy like that impersonates him. But when you see his president, no matter what he's saying, I don't care what you're saying, you should be able to say it better than that. And it's just a shame. But that's where he is at this point. He's took a totally dark turn, and he said, we don't need them here. Well, he's not saying, well, I'm going to round them up or anything. He's just talking like somebody sitting in a trailer park drinking a beer, which is what he did his entire first term. And but yeah, it reflects badly on us, and I'm sure the whole world is listening to that and thinking, wow, boy, America's got one shock cookie there in Jewish.
I mean, I would say that Trump has always been this way. I used to listen to him on Howard Stern. He's not exactly the pillar of eloquence, sure, it's gotten worse, because I don't know, but he's not your regular Shakespeare. He's never been that, right? So he's always talked like this, he's always been incredibly vulgar, and now he feels empowered to be able to do it, or he's freaking going crazy, one of the two. As far as the Somalian population in Minnesota and across the United States, they came here not, largely as refugees, right? Because of the wars going on in their countries and the strikes that the United States has been, they've been bombing Somalia since 2003. It doesn't make it any better.
Since the 90s.
Dramatic. What's up, buddy?
Since the 90s, Black Hawk Down.
Okay, yeah, people are telling me that. Okay, yeah, so they've been here a while. Okay,
so it's been a bit, man, and it's dramatically increased in under Trump. He's been bombing the crap out of Somalia, and now ICE is concentrating on getting rid of the Somali population in Minnesota after what he said, right? And there's that they're unskilled. Maybe that's the wrong words to use, Don. They are productive in the economy of Minnesota. There have been many entrepreneurs from the Somalian community in Minnesota, and they fill a lot of jobs in healthcare and different things like that. I read a whole article on it to see what they were doing, and so they are being productive. There is a level of poverty, though. That's a reality across the United States, regardless of race or where you come from. But that's the reason that they were here, or they are here. There's a lot of these people that don't know any other country. They were born here. They are Americans. They don't know what it's like to be in Somalia. They've never been in Somalia. They are American, and they're fully integrated into American culture, right? As far as assimilation goes, which Tony mentioned, and I think there should be a certain amount of assimilation for people that come into the country. I think they should at least learn or be required to learn English. A lot of people learn English on their own, and that's fantastic, right? I think it should be a requirement of being here, like so we can all communicate better, right? I mean, maybe it's a bad idea. I think it's something that everybody should do. But it's not like they're here just bumming off, the state or whatever. Even though I'm sure there are individual examples that we can point at and say, hey, look at them. But that's true for everyone, So I wouldn't exactly use the word unskilled. There's a lot of people from Somalia here that are
well, I use that word on purpose because they use that for everybody. I don't even know what that means. They say you're not, you're unskilled. Basically, they denigrate all work. We've got enough unskilled people here. We don't need more. So that's what I'm saying. We don't need more people. And Trump is saying we do. But Jackson T. Barrett, I wish I had thought at the beginning of the show, we should have talked about the J6 pipe bomber.
Let's talk about it. I don't know how much time you guys got left, but turns out it wasn't Antifa. Right, everybody's like, "Oh, Antifa." It wasn't. It was some black guy, and he was a Trump supporter.
Yeah, all right, that's what they claiming some black kid from the Woodbridge. It's real near me. But what happened to the cop? They claimed it was a female cop who was with this former CIA. They just completely washed that down the memory hole. And now
the kid even real?
That's another thing.
His grandmother said he's autistic, and he's never even been to DC or something. Jackson Patel's on the job. He solved it. So Jackson, he solved it. Nothing to see here. Move along.
I'm going to wait for the group picture with Tyler Robinson and the Crooks guy. Yes. They're all doing a BlackRock commercial, whatever that is.
Yeah. Fantastic. No, you make a lot of good points. This is Kash Patel's FBI.
Yes.
If we were skeptical of the FBI back then, we need to be really skeptical of the FBI.
If you look at that guy's tweets, him and Bongino both. I guess they're masochists. They put this, and 99.9% of them are just here's the meter, zero arrests for anything, and what are you doing? What about the Epstein files? They just call them names, and they just still brag about doing nothing, But so I'm sure, and they're bragging about this. We caught the J6 pipe bomber. Really, this is the guy you think did it? So he had no reason. He thought there was fraud in the 2020 election. Said, "Well, it must be him then." It's just unbelievable. But that's what we got now, and that's. And Trump is supposedly going to fire Kash Patel. I heard that's what Jimmy Dore was saying. I don't believe
it when I see it. Jimmy Dore is incredibly out of fucking touch. I will believe that when I see it. The day Donald Trump fires Kash Patel. All Kash Patel has to do successfully is continue to live up Donald Trump's ass, and he should be fine. He hasn't fired Pete Hegseth. Under any other circumstance, in any other administration, Pete Hegseth would have been gone by now. Hasn't happened. I don't know if it will happen. They're already trying to throw other people under the bus here. But this is something I got to see to believe. Doubting Thomas, until it happens, I won't believe it. So let's produce. I'll be very happy they get rid of Kash Patel. Who's going to replace him, though?
Yeah,
more crap. So I can't with these people. All right. We can talk about the pipe bomber more next week, Lord willing. If I go live, I'll talk about him a little bit more. I don't trust anything out of Kash Patel. Not a damn thing. So what can I tell you? You can all be right about your theories about all of this. This is what they've rolled out there. And you know what's really important, actually, before we get off air? They've had this footage all along. It's been 5 years they've had this footage of this pipe bomber. And nothing. They could have identified him. Maybe they did, and they just didn't tell us. I don't know. But they're rolling it out now for a reason. I just thought that was incredibly suspect when I looked at it. I'm like, they've had this for how long? Anyway. All right, Tony Arterburn, the wisest of all the wolves. Tell the people where they can find you.
It's my thoughts exactly. I wouldn't be surprised that this is a construct, just like something made up to put to fill in a pigeonhole. Like, oh, we got rid. That's one less thing you have to think about, because right. you uncover January 6th. There's just layers and layers of things that we've talked about for years that don't make any sense and have nothing to do with what was spouted off as the official narrative. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see if there's more from this. I would say I talked about on my show as we close out the boat bombing in with Venezuela and the second round to kill the survivors. I reading into this, looking through anti-war, I don't think this story's going away. That's my prediction. I think that it may not be in the next couple of months, but by the time we have midterms and the verdict of that here in November of next year, I think you're going to continue. This is a story that's probably not going to go away. There's more and more to uncover there. I don't think it's going to bode well. It's a harbinger of the story.
Yeah, man. I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. And it shouldn't go away, in my opinion. I'll still be surprised to see Pete Hegseth get fired here, but if anybody's going to get fired, it's going to be him. He continues to overstep the line blatantly. Like, I mean, you talk about incredible incompetence, arrogance, and stupidity. It's Pete Hegseth. So let's see. Maybe he'll do some other freaking outrageous thing that they have to fire him over. But right now, I still have to see it to believe it. Tony Arterburn, Wise Wolf, the whole deal. Did you tell them where they can find you?
You can find me at my website is tony.gold, and I have a program called Paratruther. Subscribe to the podcast if you can. Give me a review if you like the show. It helps out. And Wise Wolf, gold and silver, if you want to get out of fiat, out of those Luciferian bankster notes and into real money, give me a call.
There you go, Tony Arterburn. You know where to reach him. You may actually talk to him. He may actually pick up the phone and say something to you. It's
true.
It's worth the phone call just for that. Drug boats wasn't even heading to the U.S. Tell me something we didn't already know. That's the drug report. The drug report.
the drug report. Yeah. That's on drugs.
Drug report headline, right? The drug report. Don Jeffries, the legendary. Tell them where they can find you, sir.
Well, of course, Jeannie Poole had a good one in the chat. She said that maybe they can find a skilled Somalian to replace Cash Patel. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm sure we can find a skilled anyone to replace. I think we could do that.
Absolutely. But you can find me. Substack again is the place only place I'm not being shadow banned. Donald Jeffries at substack.com. I protest just like my weekly podcast here. My 10 books are out there everywhere. I was just on Sherry Tenpenny last week again. It's always great to be. So the big show's getting bigger and bigger. So people can catch I put the link up for that on my social media. So people can catch me there.
All right. I think Sherry Tenpenny is a complete and total disaster. Just to be clear, I used to listen to her all the time.
She likes me.
Oh, I'm glad she does. Sorry about. Tony, you got something up there? Oh yeah,
I was going to play us out.
All right, my name is Billy Ray Valentine. Guerrilla Underground, 7 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. I don't know if I'll be on this Sunday. I don't think I'll be home in time. I might go on later tonight if I have some time. I might do that. So look out for that. But no guarantees. Definitely next week, Lord willing. And that's all we got. Stay vigilant, everybody. Love your neighbors, all that good stuff. Hope, tons of hope. We are hope here on America Unplugged, ladies and gents. Take it easy. We love you guys, man. Tony, play us out. Burn the place down. Let's go.
You got it.
Bye.